official call is under review. Let's go to the monitor.
SEC football. It just means more. Now back to your favorite bearded duo, Todd and Marty.
Welcome back, guys, to another great episode of the Under Review podcast. Today, hey, it's Thanksgiving. I hope your bellies are full and you're ready to sit down and relax. Take a load off. Turn on the Under Review podcast and get ready for the end of the regular season episode. So before we jump into that, let's get some sponsor work in real quick.
This episode of the Under Review podcast is brought to you by Chuck's Heating and Air. Chuck has over 40 years of service and experience with residential services. He services most makes and models. He is Alabama licensed, bonded, and insured, and locally owned and operated. Are you hot and you're supposed to be cool? Are you cool and you're supposed to be hot? Then you've got a problem. Call Chuck. Area code 256-892-2757. Again, 256-892-2757. Chuck's Heating and Air.
Again, it's Thanksgiving. So super thankful for Chuck's Heating and Air, all they do for us and his customers. So let's jump into some football. This week, the final week of the regular season, is Rivalry Week. And I'm going to mess that up more than once this episode, so hang in there. One of the best weeks in college football is at the end of the year. Yes, there are a couple teams that play their rivalry games early in the season, which Todd and I both talked. We're not a big fan. We want to get the best team at the end of the year instead of playing the game early and you're both 0-0, don't know where your team is at. So I think for each team, you're getting the best at the end of the season. If you're hot, you're not. Really going to come down. So let's jump into some SEC rivalries real quick. All right, if you're following on Facebook for our Spotify viewers, I will try to give you the best visual I can. I've got up on the screen the best rivalries in the SEC. It's the top 10 collection of SEC rivalries that involve SEC teams. Well, our games, there's 10 on this list. Well, out of all our games this week in the SEC, eight games have made this list. Of course, Georgia Tech, Kentucky, Louisville, Texas A&M, Texas, of course, Florida State, and the Gators. But at that number one spot is, of course, the biggest one down south in the SEC. And for my opinion, I think it is the biggest in the country. Yes, Ohio State, Michigan gets a lot of back and forth. But for me, it's always going to be the Iron Bowl. So let's actually jump into our games and break down a few of the little bit lesser games so we can get into our big games of the week here in the final run. Our first game is going to take us all the way to Kentucky as the Louisville Cardinals come in at a 7-4 record, looking to continue that winning ways and hoping the Wildcats don't put much up a fight at 11 a.m., your first game of the week on the SEC network. So this is a rivalry total. So yes, they have played a bunch of football, but it's not as big as it is in the basketball world. This is a much bigger rivalry for basketball reasons, as both of them being powerhouses in the late 80s, early 90s into that. And then Calipari jumping on the bus Kentucky and really revamped this rivalry. But as far as football-wise, Kentucky has struggled all year. Brock Vandagriff really hasn't put too much together all season. He really started out high potential, and he's failed week after week. Yes, he'll catch some traction here in a couple series and drives, but I don't think it's enough for this really top-tier ACC team that Louisville is. So I'm going to go here for the Governor's Cup, which I've noticed it through my research the last couple of weeks. The Governor Cup is not just one trophy. Other states have a Governor Cup trophy. I think there's another one here in the lineup for this game. But here, I think Louisville's going to handle business and get a win in Kentucky. Here at 11 a.m., another early game. You flitch it over to ABC. The 11th ranked Tennessee Volunteers look to stay alive in the playoff race as they go against a pretty tough 6-5 Vandy team who has really excelled all of our expectations all year, played really good. We think if they could have notched them a couple early games of the Georgia State game, really they could be a 8-win team here. Proving they did beat Alabama, and I don't see them beating Tennessee here. I think Tennessee has many weapons. They are the overall favorite at 80%. If Nico struggles, Sampson can pick him up. The defense really holds pretty good. So I do like Tennessee here, but not so fast. Vandy has really fought hard for all their wins. Definitely, again, could have more wins here as their record doesn't reflect that. And we have seen Tennessee struggle with some lesser teams, only for a quarter or so here and there. With Nico still being a young, true freshman starting quarterback, I think he has way to develop. The other side of that, Pavia has really excelled. And again, I've talked about more than one episode. He does need a little more help. His wide receiver, I believe Sellers, hasn't done, I think he had a touchdown last week, but not as progressed to be enough. He is an excellent leader for this team. I think he can push it, and I think if it's super close, that I think a Pavia magic can happen. Not saying it will, because I think Tennessee, again, has too many weapons to not prevail in this game, in this state rivalry. As give me the Vols. Our third matchup for this week on the SEC Network is going to be your after lunch game, your 2:30 game here. The Arkansas Razorbacks with a 6-5 record travel over to Mizzou, holding up that number 23 spot with an 8-6 record in the battle for the Battle Line Trophy. And this is a state line war here. Going to be close. I think it's going to be closer than we think. We have seen. We haven't been on Mizzou's bandwagon all year as far as them being super caliber, but I think they settled into where they belong. Yes, in the top 25, but not out of the top 25 further. They're picked here at 65, 66%, but we know what Arkansas can do. Taylor Green, I think that's Green. Yeah, Green really has struggled. Le'Veon Moss, I think I got them right. But hopefully. But we have seen the good side of Arkansas in a lot of ball games. They're a feisty team. This is the predictors, like I said, it's only 60, like a 60-40 game here. So 60-30, however, like I said, y'all know I don't math well. Could be the best exciting game here. Not probably at this 2:30 spot, but maybe for the day, because the big game comes on at 2:30, which should be our number one game. So again, I want to take Mizzou here. If Arkansas can pull the ball, there's no shocker, but I think they can get it done with Cook at the helm, Luther Burden third, and them guys like that. Our next game, ESPN, 6 p.m., your late game. The 6-5 Oklahoma Sooners travel down to Death Valley and face the 7-4 LSU Tigers. I mean, this is it's said it's a rivalry, but the more I listen to it, this is only their fourth meeting. LSU leads the series 2-1, and I think most of these were bowl games within the last 15 or 20 years. But let's talk about these teams. Oklahoma really pulled one of the shocking upsets last week and upset number 7 Alabama. Shocker to me. I had Alabama picked all the way, especially after the big win against LSU, as Jalen Milroe had Heisman-like numbers. And then they laid an egg at LSU against Florida, and they've really struggled. I really was at a loss for this one because this is another 60-40 game. Nussmeier hasn't really excelled to where he can. Yes, he throws the ball 40 and 50 times a game, but only completing 20-25 and being at a 50%, his decision-making has not been the best. Excuse me. But then on the other side of that ball, Oklahoma's quarterback, Jackson Arnold, really was the main reason that they fought toe-to-toe with Alabama, which seems like we talked about that they didn't even get off the airplane. But I'm excited to watch this one late. I mean, LSU's defense, I think, is a really stout. The Weeks kid could play NFL, and I can't remember the linebacker for Oklahoma, the senior, Simpson, something like that. He had the Brian Bosworth kind of haircut and kind of feel to him, but he's excellent with that team. So, I mean, if I have to pick, I think Oklahoma can really hang with them just as good as they played against Alabama. Will they have a hangover and not play that well, or will they continue pounding the fight and beat this LSU team up more than they have this year? They've had high expectations, but they're like Swiss cheese. There's a lot of holes in this team. I don't remember who I picked them. I picked them, and just going off how I feel right now, I think it could be an upset. Give me Oklahoma. For one of the biggest rivalries in college football, man, this really propelled through the 90s as they both had great head coaches, but we're going to travel down in the lower part of Florida to Florida State University, holding up a horrendous record at 2-9, one of the worst in the ACC, to go up against their in-state rival, which has really flourished, really found some magic here late as they put Napier's job on the line, as we've talked about many times before. And in this one, there's no contest. And just to say, this was our number 4 game on our list of our top 10 games that we did have, but there's no contest here. It's going to be Florida and Lagway, just way too much. Yes, we throw, like I said, if you notice on any of the graphics, if you are watching the YouTube or what have you, I put no rankings on there because the fact you can throw, in a lot of these rival games, you throw rankings out the window. Throw caution to the wind, strap on your favorite color of your team, and you give them heck for the 3 hours that you're watching this ball game. And a lot of time numbers don't matter, but I think in this one they do. Florida's going to find a way to keep going, keep rolling against this horrendous Florida team. I already thought there have been some firings this year early in some of the other conferences, but I would sure have thought that Mike Norvell would have been on the first interstate out of Florida State. But who knows? Late game, get all your hooping and hollering through this one, but I don't think it's going to be much of a matter. Give me the Gators on this one. All right, fellas, now, and ladies, it's time to get into our biggest SEC games of the week as far as rivalry. Again, like I just mentioned, there's no numbers on these games as far as rankings because 9 times out of 10, again, you can throw these out. It don't mean nothing. These are matchups where you're going to get your best player for the 3 hours it's in. You're going to get the hardest jobs. You're going to get the biggest hits. It means more to these players. It means more to the fans. It means more to the coaches. and it means a lot. So we're going to flip over, go up on our whiteboard here. We're going to break down these rivalries a little bit and see a little bit of past before we can get into the future. So our first game is going to be the Egg Bowl, which is the classic Mississippi State Ole Miss. This rivalry has been since 1901. I won't guess say one of the newer ones, but it is kind of newer. Mississippi State leads. They've only matched up in the first meeting. Mississippi State won. They've matched up 120 times. Ole Miss. Who is next meeting? Latest meeting? First meeting? I thought it had who had. But anyway, beside the point, before I get sidetracked, these two teams are only 99 miles apart. Probably one of the closer ones in this. Largest victory, Ole Miss beat up on them 65-0 in 1915, which, none of us were around to even enjoy that. But Ole Miss won the last game, but Mississippi State holds the longest streak in this game. As from 1911 to 1925, they won 13 straight. So we're going to Vaught-Hemingway Stadium in Oxford, Mississippi. Flip over to ABC at 2:30 to where we can find this Egg Bowl matchup. This is number 3 on our list of 10 games. Heavily favored at 95%. The Ole Miss Rebels, Land Sharks, the Kiffin Trains, whatever you're going to call them, are going up against the bottom of the barrel Mississippi State team as of in the SEC. There's no doubt in my mind. I say that, but watch it be different. I'm not an expert like our buddy Hayden and can pick the upsets and do all that as he did last week. But no, Jackson Dart, these guys here, Lane Kiffin's really got these guys tuned up this year. I think they're still 10th or 11th right there. I don't see them being dominant in the playoffs if they do make it. I think they're just right on that cusp of it. But if they do have the weapons where Henry Parrish Jr., guys like that can make this team excel. Yes, on the other side, Mississippi State has struggled. They're not going to give up. Marcus Van Buren, really talented quarterback, just a freshman. No other way around this one than Ole Miss here. Mississippi State's not going to lay down. They might keep it close. As if we have seen Ole Miss struggle in some early losses and then in some drives. But I think they have enough to get through. Lane gets this guy. Jackson Dart can possibly have another, Heisman-type game here with the spotty defense that Mississippi State plays and have another 300 or 400-yard game. So at the end of the day, in Oxford, it's going to be the Rebels. Our number 10 matchup, lower on the list to this, separating the teams 159 miles apart, is clean old-fashioned hate, which brings you the Georgia Bulldogs against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. First meeting was in 1893. They've had 117 matches as Georgia leads the series 71-41 with 5 ties, which I noticed in a lot of these there are a couple ties because way back in the day before overtime and all that, they just let it win. Let it go with the tie, and I'm kind of not the big fan of the ties, but it happens. It's history. This is also called the Governor's Cup, as this trophy as well, if you can see pictured on the screen, similar to some of the other trophies that we have. Georgia Tech holds the longest streak in this game from 1949 to 1956. Georgia won. Georgia has the current winning streak at 6 games from 2017 to the present, which is no shocker here. Georgia Tech has really struggled over the last couple of years, and Georgia has prevailed with Smart and the national title. So, Sanford Stadium, 6:30, Athens, Georgia. ABC's carrying the game for the clean old-fashioned hate. 2 Titans. I don't want to say Titans because Georgia Tech, they had a little bit of success in the last couple of years, but not as much as Georgia. ACC I think we'll lose this matchup again as well. Georgia is looking to stay hot in the playoff race. A few struggle losses here and there. Carson Beck really has kind of tuned up some of his passing insufficiencies. I mean, interceptions, either or, however you look at it. I think Georgia's just better all around as far as this one comes down to it. There's not too much to say about Georgia Tech. Yeah, they have 2-3 good athletes, but I don't think it's enough to keep them in this game with Georgia. Now, whether they may hang around for a little bit in the first half or so, because as we have known, Georgia is a half-to-half team or a quarter-to-quarter team. But maybe in this one they come out hot and get their starters out, stuff like that. Or Georgia Tech could come in, rivalry game, start punching, start and making some blows and get Georgia off their feet. But at the end of the day, Georgia will stand the test of time on this one, knock it out of the park, and will continue to hold the Governor's Cup for the 7th straight year in a row. So now it's one of our new teams in the SEC matching up with one of their old rivals, and I think they were Big 12 as Texas A&M, as this is the Lone Star Showdown. This team is only separated by 264 miles, which is 2-3 hour drive depending on how fast you're going. The Lone Star Trophy shows there a really nice trophy, one of the nicer ones in our rivalry series, the big state of Texas, and then their little rivalry logo. Their first meeting, which Texas won 38-0, was on 1894 in October. Really, they've played 118 matchups. Texas leads the series similar to the others, 76-37, with 5 ties in this matchup. The greatest victory margin here was Texas, 49-0 in 1998. And I don't know if that was Williams or Williams was already gone from Texas. Don't remember. But Texas now has to win streak as they played them in 2011. So it's been a couple years since these teams matched up, which is not a bad thing. But now that they're in the SEC, this rivalry can be renewed. And this was the number 7 matchup on our list of 10 that we had. So 6:30, a late game, ABC, Kyle Field, College Station. Get ready for a really intense ball game. This has so many implications, not just for the college playoff, but for the SEC championship. You win this game right here, if you can notice, that punches your ticket to the SEC championship to face Georgia. I don't know. I've looked at so many things. I talked with Brandon. There's so many different ways, and there's a certain way that another red team can get in, but we're not going to talk about that. But no, I'm super excited. This one was a 70-30 game, as Texas has predicted 77%. I don't know. We have seen Texas struggle, but then we have also seen Texas be electric with Quinn Ewers at helm, just being able to make the plays. The big tight end, Gunnar Helm, I believe, really has got to him the last couple games. Texas A&M, they can hang in there. They have showed what they can do. Their last outing was really it was a loss, but I think sometimes you need to lose to win, if you get what I'm saying. A really hard fought. It come down to them 4 overtimes with Auburn, and not to say Auburn got lucky, but I think Auburn worked a little harder in that game to win. But we know Texas A&M can fight. We know Texas can struggle. So I knew there was one game I didn't have picked because it was so close. And if I need to, I think A&M's going to come out fighting mad after the upset in Jordan-Hare, which, as Nick Saban called it, a haunted house. But again, I like Texas. I like Texas A&M. I'm kind of unsure if I have to pick, let's go Texas, because I think maybe there may be some hangover from the loss against Auburn with Texas A&M, and Texas has been riding super high. So, and I think Texas punches their ticket here to the SEC championship to face Georgia, which is kind of, what we've been waiting for. I think did they play earlier in the year? Possibly, maybe. I don't remember. I've got through so many games. It's crazy. So, Longhorns. Our next rivalry. And also, hold up. Let me click some more buttons, because I know Todd likes button clicking. Our interstate game of the week, which is a first year that we're having a SEC team in the game of the week. And the only reason we chose this, because this is the only top 25 matchup in. I think, remember Clemson closer to the mid-pack. I know South Carolina was 18. It really messes me up because, again, like I said, I didn't put any headings. But this is for let me flip it over, the Palmetto Bowl. Some Palmetto trees. I didn't get to look too much into this one. Their first meeting was in 1896, one of the older ones in this rivalry. Played 120 games. Clemson leads the series 73-43. Current winning streak, Clemson won last year. And Clemson's longest winning streak was, they had 2 7-year winning streaks, 1934 to 1940, from 2014 to 2019. Trophies. It says Hardee's Trophy. Unless they're sponsored by Hardee's. Okay, it was from 1980 to 2014. It was sponsored by Hardee's. I've seen that logo, but this was the most recent logo I found for the Palmetto tree, which started back in 2015. We'll flip over. So now we're going to travel to Clemson, South Carolina for the interstate game of the week. ESPN, the early game at 11 a.m. for the Palmetto Bowl, where the South Carolina Gamecocks look to make a little ruckus for an ACC rivalry in the Clemson Tigers. This is probably by far the closest game of any one we have this week. If you're watching, please enjoy the graphics. It was one of my favorite ones I got to do this week for some reason, which I'm learning more, getting better at it, and I really enjoy doing it. But let's talk some football. South Carolina defense has just played lights out all year. Debo Williams and them guys on that defense are really, really stellar in most games. They have struggled. Shane Beamer has got the offense where he wants it. I think he would like to see a little more production in some games. But Clemson's quarterback, Cade Klubnik, has really been stellar. And at a 57-42 close game, pulling for Clemson, I think there's too many struggles here for South Carolina, and I think Klubnik really takes the reins here in this game to give the ACC up one on us this week, being that we're going to take the Florida win against Florida State for that one. So, again, going to be a super close ball game. I like Clemson here in the end. I think their offense is a little better. South Carolina's defense is great. South Clemson, that makes no sense. But Clemson can outshadow the South Carolina defense and takes the win. So now let's do some more button clicking. Sorry for the delay. I'm getting better. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason we are here. The Iron Bowl. The Iron Bowl. This is not just a football game to people in the state. This is husband and wives. This is brother and sister, cousins, everybody your work friends. You have that special group of friends at work that are your Auburn fans. Then you have the others, the Bama fans, vice versa. This means more to everybody that's put the helmet on, who's put on an Auburn shirt, who wears the crimson, who wears the houndstooth. This means, well, I'm getting dadgum chill bumps if you could see it. It's crazy. It's Albie, Big Al, Roll Tide, War Eagle. Woo! This is, man, that just got me fired up. I'm super excited for this game. Not for... Oh, yeah, I'm just super excited. I think this is going to be a really good ball game. But first, let's jump over to our whiteboard and let's take it a few. This has been one of the craziest rivalries in ever. Started back in 1893, which Auburn took the first victory, 34-24, I believe. These are just some really fun games, or some of the best games that I put on. I got a little flack from Brittany because she said it was one-sided, but I told her it was our podcast. We can do what we want. But nonetheless, let's break a few of these down. So the rivalry started in 1893, and it dropped off for 41 years for the players wanting more money, Alabama, and wanting to be greedy. Yes, there was wars going on and stuff like that, but it renewed back in 1948, and Alabama did win 55-0, one of their bigger margins of victory in this series. Let's jump to 1981. Bear becomes the all-time winning coach against his arch rival Auburn as Alabama beat the Tigers 28-17, making him, let's see, for his 315th win as a head coach, which is still astonishing numbers. Bear Bryant, one of the greatest, maybe top 2 or 3, because again, you can't deny Nick Saban is the greatest of all time. Yes, I am truly an Auburn fan, but you can't deny with the numbers. But just another little fun fact, Bear Bryant lost his last game against the Tigers, or he lost his last Iron Bowl. Jump to the next year when this crazy phenom come in named Bo Jackson. Have you ever heard of him? And I think at this time, Alabama was on a 9 or 10 game winning streak in the Iron Bowl. Come down to a late drive. Pat Dye, really inspiring coach, just kept pounding on them. On the goal line, they hiked the ball. Bo Jackson over the top 4. Auburn's first win in, I think, a decade or so, which I'm okay with that. It's one of my favorite videos to watch. I think that's the same when Coach Dye gave his really, really good speech for beating Alabama, this, that, and the other. So let's jump into a few of the more recent things, and I got some notes here as well, just to cram a little more Iron Bowl information in. 2010 was the fantastic year for Auburn. It was the Cam Newton show. I believe Auburn was number 2, Alabama was number 11. We come into Tuscaloosa. In this Iron Bowl game, it's rivalries. I watched the interview with Cam Newton when he was on the show, and he said as the bus was pulling up into Tuscaloosa, there was like an old couple in their late 70s or so, flipping them the bird, throwing stuff at the bus, and he said that sparked his fire, which Cam Newton, probably one of the greatest quarterbacks in college football, for having a one-year season, getting a championship, and going to the NFL. But this was the comeback. This was, Auburn got down early. If I remember right, I was over at Andrea's house, and 9 times out of 10, back when I was in school and was coming out, I was the only Auburn fan at the party. I know there's many times I went to my friend Matt's house. Now, me and my buddy Frankie, we would always go together, and we would be about the only 2 or so surrounded by Alabama fans. But I've been that way my whole life. That's why I get the fire for Auburn when I talk about them. But no, Cam comes back. We're down 14-15, comes back and leads a tremendous 2 and 3 drives, never quitting, finding Terrell Zachary on a touchdown. And my favorite all-time player, yes, there's Cam and there's Pat and there's Cadillac Williams, but my favorite all-time, rest in peace, Philip Lutzenkirchen, threw the late touchdown pass to him. He did the Lutzy. Auburn wins the ball game. Cruises us into the SEC championship where we get it done win the national championship for the first time in like 40-something years. Oh, I need a drink after that. I get a little long-winded. 2013, another crazy year for Auburn as far as Auburn being a haunted house for teams to go play in. Earlier in this year, this game, we had the prayer at Jordan Hare, Nick Marshall to Ricardo Lewis against Georgia, Trey Matthews, who ended up playing at Auburn. One of the greatest college games of all time, even by all the picks. There are like the band on the field is pretty close for the Ohio State game. But in my mind, this is probably the greatest college football game as far as everything that was on the line in this game. And the best fun fact about this game, me and my best friend Frankie were at this game. I got to be a part of history, storming the field, the whole Toomer's Corner. Got to really be one of the greatest things I've seen in my life, except for like the birth of my daughter and stuff like that. One of the greatest games. Really didn't yes, we were in the game. I remember Saban called the timeout. There was 1 second left, and I told Frank, I was like, really, we're going to get beat at the last second here. And we knew Alabama had struggled that game as kicking. It was a horrible game for their kicker. I think he missed 3 or 4 before that, and it really set them up. And so much when the kick went up and Chris Davis got it and ran it back, and I didn't really understand the abnormality of when he run it, that, yes, I understood we won, but I didn't know how much that affected that game. And I noticed it. We're having a blast party, and I look up on the screen and see SEC West champions, and I lost it for some reason. There was just so much emotion, man. What a great game to be at. Just making memories there. Went to Toomers, did the whole Toomers thing. We were there since 4 a.m. doing game day. What a fun game to be a part of college football history. Let's see, am I going to skip some of them games first? Yeah. So we jump down to the next year where it gets crazy for Auburn, and not in a good way, because this young kid called Tua Tagovailoa is starting his junior year, I believe. Well, let's see, 99. No, this is not Tua. This was it wasn't the overtime game, but this was the most points scored. Alabama won 55-44, the highest game in this, with 99 points. I remember it was Auburn got beat like a drum, but they hung in there. They still scored 44, but Bama put up 55. Let's take 4 years down the road. This kid from Hawaii, kid Tua Tagovailoa has one of the greatest games as far as an Alabama quarterback has ever had. This kid, I think he holds the record now, 6 touchdowns in one game for the Crimson Tide. Really beat up on Auburn. Really was not the best day in the world for Auburn, but Tua Stronghold's Crimson Tide wins. Drop down to one of the most recent 2021. I remember watching this game. The kids were at home. We were all watching it together. I had my lucky helmet out, doing my rituals as most people do during rivalry games. The 4 overtime game, Bama wins 24-22. But man, it was one of them heart attack games that it was a fist fight the whole game, and Alabama I think was favored pretty good in this game if I remember right. And Auburn didn't give up. They kept fighting. That last touchdown, when he scored the last touchdown right there in the little corner of the end zone, I just felt defeated. But that's okay, because that's what rivalries do. Rivalries make you feel something that you don't feel every day, or at least once a year, so that you can have it. I felt defeated, but that's okay. It happens until last year. If you're watching, notice on screen the 4th and 31 play. This was the first year that Brittany and I had watched the game together. Now, as some of y'all know, and if you don't know, we are a house divided. She's full screaming houndstooth, crimson roll tide, and I'm orange and blue through and through, War Eagle. But we are very patient with each other, and watching this ball game is because Alabama was number 8 in the country. Auburn was unranked. And we fought them tooth and nail. So we decided just to keep it fair. How do we deal with this? Let's not getting each other pissed off during each other. So if Alabama or Auburn would score, kick a field goal, whatever, just to cut the tension, we would just give each other a little smooch, just as good sportsmanship. So this game's going on and on and on, and Auburn's, scored, stopped them doing this, and it's 4th and 31. To me, I didn't per se realize the magnitude again in this game. Is all we had to do, get him down, deflect the pass, knock the pass down, whatever. But he drops back, and one of the prettiest balls to ever be thrown. And he dropped it right in Isaiah Bond's hand. And I seen it when it happened in real time. He drug the foot. It was over. I said some wordy dirds, maybe punched a wall, acted a monkey. Brittany stopped, grabbed me. We kissed, and then she started shouting. And just being there together was the best part. But Auburn losing in that way and to be called Gravedigger, which was one of my favorite monster trucks, really sours me. And now that we're in the house, we've got a little media room and we're putting pictures and stuff up. And Brittany really wants to get a 4th and 31. I said, you can get any other one. That one just hurt the most. And it's so fresh. I said, no on Gravedigger. But no, this was just a quick synopsis of the Iron Bowl history. And yes, there's so many other games. The first time at Jordan Hare, the first time in Tuscaloosa, because for some of you do not know that the first Iron Bowls were played in Birmingham at Legion Field for so many years. And then it's still, I think they started playing at Auburn first, and then we'll go back to Legion Field. And then Alabama come along a few years later and started playing them at Tuscaloosa. So let's jump into a few more numbers before I get talking about the game, get long-winded, and pass out. So this is for the James E. Foy VXODK Sportsmanship Trophy. Yes, that is a mouthful. One of my favorite trophies. I've seen it up in close and personal. I couldn't spit it out. I've touched the trophy. Really cool. This 159 miles separate T-Town from Tiger Town. Wow. And there's only been 88 meetings of this. Alabama leads the series a little bit closer than some of the others, 50-37 with one tie. That's a 5.74 rating at that. Again, the first meeting was in 1893. Auburn wins 32-22. And, of course, Auburn won last year with the Gravedigger play, the 4th and 31. Auburn has had some really good streaks in this. I think when Tobert was there, I think we had 6 straight. But Alabama holds the current streak at 4 and the longest streak at 9 from 1973 to 1981, which I think that was Barfield, and that was the year it come to an end for them with Bo over the top. So now let's actually jump into the game before we talk about the rest of this game of the week, which I've rambled and ranted. Hope you liked it, because this is what I'm passionate. I'm passionate about Auburn football, the Iron Bowl. So whatever you're doing at 2:30, stop. Put everything down. Let the kids go play outside, whatever. But at 2:30 on ABC, the greatest college rivalry comes to a head at Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. Really great environment there. I was there 2 weeks ago, had a really good time. Brittany showed me around, made some new friends, seen some old friends. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what you believe, orange and blue or crimson and white. So let's look at numbers here. Shockingly enough, if you do quarterback comparison, over the last couple of games, besides the LSU game for Jalen Milroe, he has been lights out. And yes, on the other side of the ball, I say we like I play for him, but Peyton has struggled with his interceptions. But now, I wish I thought to put the slide in here for the players, but Peyton Thorne actually has better numbers than Milroe right now as far as touchdowns, yards, completions, and everything like that. But That's who's to say we know what Jalen Miro can do. Look at the LSU game, the Wisconsin game, the fight back at Georgia. So the predictor has this game at 87-12 percent-wise. Now, me and Todd talked about it, and he thinks it should be up to maybe 70-30. And just in case if you were wondering and can't remember, this is our number one game in the SEC matchup in the rivalries from the earlier slide that we showed. I'm no professional by any means. I'm no Lee Corso or Hayden Coker or anything like this. Like I said, you cut me anywhere on my body and orange and blue is going to leak out. I want to see, I don't want to say bloodbath. That's not the best word for it. I just want to see what I know this game means. Jacquez Hunter being a senior is how he fought against Texas A&M. I want to see that fire. I want to see Miro bounce back, do things, get Ryan Williams involved. We talk about Ryan. I think we can't talk about Ryan Williams if we don't talk about how explosive Cam Coleman has been the last 2 weeks with, I think, at least 6 touchdowns in the last 2 games. Ryan Williams still an amazing talent. I think that's going to be a good matchup for both back sevens. As Auburn has picked up their play, their bend don't break. When Alabama plays to their best of ability, they can't be beat in the country as far as like the LSU game, the Wisconsin game that I mentioned earlier. Everybody listen to this podcast. Brittany knows, Todd knows, Mom and Dad knows who I'm pulling for in this game, of course, is the Auburn Tigers. Just I think they're great, and it's even in this rivalry. Auburn has always been the little brother, and I've always been an underdog fan, and I've always liked that fight. Auburn was something that me and my dad always did together, and then we got taught into it, and it's more of a family thing for me. Why I pull for Auburn, but maybe against my better judgment, however you want to see it, I'm going War Down Eagle to have the upset in Bryant-Denny. Excuse me, guys. Had to get a drink. Guys, that is the end of our preview for Rivalry Week and the end of the college football regular season. What an amazing year it has, from the upsets, the Vanderbilt wins, the Florida fighting back. Just so many good things have come out of this year that we didn't expect. As in, again, Vandy, Florida, how the struggles at Kentucky and LSU have proven to hurt their season late. Same with Ole Miss, is falling from that top spot. Again, we talked about Mizzou being a high-ranked team, and they fluttered out to where they should be at the bottom of that top 25 class. But again, we thank you enough. We still got one more thing going. We still got a couple more days in our greatest of all time SEC logos. And again, this weekend, we're still working on the Alabama Crimson Tide. There's your 5 choices. I think in the post that Todd posted, I think number 3 differs a little bit with a different elephant coming through the A. Again, 1, the early years, 2, the retro, I would call it retro 92 era, Gene Stallings era. You get into some others, the more classic Alabama A with the lettering around it, number 4. And then I call this the Nick Saban era with the mullet. Find our social medias, get out there, vote on these. And I think we're going to end it on the pre-show that posts Monday. We'll see. We're excited to continue this series. Pretty sure Arkansas is next. And, man, they have some, through the years, they don't change a lot, but there's some pretty gruesome ones in there. And I think it'll be interesting for the fans. All right, guys. I'm going to wrap up this episode. Wow, just super excited for this weekend and everything it's going to bring for college football. A lot of implications left. The Texas game, the Iron Bowl. Auburn beats Alabama. That totally kicks them out, which Brandon sent me a link. With everything in the world revolves in Alabama's favor, they could probably sneak into the playoffs. That's why we're hoping Clemson can show out and really boost their stats here for the end of the year. But, man, what a great year it has. And I know Todd's ready to be back for the post show in this once we get all these games in. Happy Thanksgiving. Super thankful for this podcast and the platform that we have to reach out to fans. Super thankful for all our friends and family, everybody involved with this podcast, and most thankful for the person who allows us to do this on this platform that we have, and that's God Almighty, our Savior. We thank Him every day for all His many blessings and His continued blessings. So, guys, let's run the little outro, and we're out for this week, and hope you enjoy it.
Thanks for making the call to go under review. Join us next time as we go to the monitors. Until then, keep your flag hanging.